everyone. I'm Katie Schaefer. I'm an ICURN. I have been a nurse for about 5 years now, and 3 of them being in the ICU. I also have a full-time new job, a new position working for my local community college as their lab coordinator for the nursing department, which I'm truly enjoying. Um, Once I get through school and pass my boards, I hope to work and grow and learn and experience and basically be the proverbial sponge um, to learn everything that I can about being a provider, which is a completely different role than I'm used to. Um, my ultimate goal, and it's something that I'll work towards even after I get my FMP, will be to work with students and to teach and be a part of that type of growth and experience. The disease I chose for this project is chronic kidney disease. And the reason why I chose chronic kidney disease is because my father had diabetes all throughout my childhood. He went from PO meds to insulin shots to creeping creatinine levels and then complications to having heart attacks with stents and um, all sorts of complications from diabetes, the original problem, but then also from the kidney failure itself. So I'm pretty well versed in the family patient aspect of chronic kidney disease, and I'm also well versed in being the nurse, so I know both sides pretty well. I can honestly say, being the nurse and explaining chronic kidney disease to someone in the ICU, I spend a lot of time educating. And one of the things I educate a lot about has to deal with kidney disease because your kidneys are one of your top 3 organs. You need your heart and your lungs to function, but if you don't have your kidneys, those other 2 organs are compensating for an organ that can't do its job. Uh, Without going into the pathophysiology, I'll just summarize that the kidneys are the reason why your blood pressure is regulated, why the salt in your system and your potassium in your system is regulated. The kidney does a lot of work for your body. I mean, it filters your blood 24 hours a day and excreting all of the unnecessary substances from your body. So it's a pretty important organ. Um, because of my history with chronic kidney disease, I personally don't have it, but I know it's hereditary and I know it's a risk factor once your family members have had it. But um, I wanted to find a resource that would be good for patients and their families when they're dealing with kidney failure of any kind, whether they have diabetes and yet they're not yet to kidney failure. Maybe they won't get to kidney failure, but the risk of diabetes makes kidney failure a very real possibility. So I went looking for a resource to potentially help patients, even if I'm bedside, as a resource for them. And the one I found was the National Kidney Foundation. Now, it doesn't have a high SEERD rubric rating, and I think that's because the information presented is not referenced. It doesn't have citations. It doesn't delineate where the information is coming from. It's just there for the patient, for the family, for anyone to read on the website. And I think this is very important because this website is designed for the patients and their families. It's a no frills website. It is very easy to navigate. It has simplistic reference materials to read, and it doesn't have high highfalutin words. It's very basic, and for patients that have varying degrees of literacy and comprehension and everything else, having something that's basic as a resource for people is pretty key. My dad didn't graduate high school, so even though he ran a successful business for years and years, um, it meant a little bit more if he couldn't read something and he couldn't understand it. So because of that fact, the National Kidney Foundation is, I think, a very great resource despite having a low SEER rubric rating. Um, I'll go in and talk about the website in just a minute, but I just wanted to say that one of the major benefits of this website is the fact that it is so simplistic. And even though the SEER rubric doesn't count it as being high, it is. One, I want to show you the National Kidney Foundation website. As you can see just by looking at it that it's very basic. There are no frills. There's nothing fancy about the website, and like I said before, it's by design. Patients and family members come here to get basic information, follow-up information, defining terms that they may not have fully understood when they were in the doctor's office, things like that. And the nice thing about this website, it's laid out in a very logical manner. And for that reason, that I find it very beneficial to patients as well as their families. So right here across the orange banner, you have prevention information in here that talks a little bit about how to prevent kidney issues and kidney disease and what to look for and what the major risk factors are and everything like that. They have terms like GFR, and all sorts of things in here just to get you started on the kidney basics, as you can tell. Moving on, there's lots of drop menus here with drop down menus for lots of information. Specifically here in kidney disease, there's a whole section devoted to nutrition. There's a section devoted to diabetes, and especially there's a nice section here that has to do with recently diagnosed, which is pretty important because when you're diagnosed with kidney disease, some people don't know what that means. Maybe some of the well-informed patients will know that they don't know what this means and seek out other information. Doctors' offices, nephrology offices are great, but they don't have the oodles of time to go through and explain everything either. So I find that this, just under kidney disease all by itself, has a lot of good information for it. The one area that I find very informative, and actually probably the one spot that I want to point out to you, is down here under dialysis. Now, when you are told that you have chronic kidney disease, that's one mental grief period that you go through. Hearing that you have dialysis is quite another. Now, when my dad was probably 5 years ago told that he would need dialysis if his creatinine kept creeping up, that scared him because dialysis is this looming invasive treatment option that means you have to go somewhere 3 times a week, get hooked up to a machine that acts as your kidney. So it's pretty invasive. It's something that you don't know a lot of the technical about, and it's terrifying. I know my dad was terrified. I think it was the one and only time I think I saw my father cry was that, oh, and that one when our dog died. But when you're told that you have dialysis, it's literally terrifying. So right here on this website for the Kidney Foundation is everything you need to know about dialysis. It talks a lot about dry weight, which is a term that has to deal with when you have your excess fluid off your body. It's your dry weight without the extra fluid. So in that your kidney works normally every day 24 hours to excrete fluids. Some people on dialysis don't make urine, but dry weight is what it is, dry weight. And the reason why I know that is I was a dialysis tech for a couple of years before I became a nurse. So I know these terms pretty well. If I keep going down, there's a section on hemodialysis right here and all of the information that has to deal with access and catheters. And under this section for access, it deals with fistulas, whether they're man-made using your own veins to create one, or was it a graft that they had to basically create a vessel for a fistula, things of that nature. If I keep going down, there's information on peritoneal, which is a home version, but still invasive and still comes with a lot of risks for infection. Definitely abdominal infection is a huge thing. And it's for people maybe who are more independent. We talked a little bit about generations being what they are, and some are more motivated to take care of themselves and all that stuff. So maybe peritoneal dialysis works for that person. But being on dialysis, period, means that you are going to have electrolyte changes. You are also going to have the need for iron, and there is the nutrition aspect of people who are on dialysis. So, without going into a lot of the details, your kidney excretes a hormone that creates and stimulates red blood cells from your bone marrow. And when your kidney function is damaged, it doesn't do that as well. So you need to maybe have a shot that you like called Epiton. It's a shot to stimulate a response for the marrow to create red blood cells. And then once you have red blood cells, it then transports the oxygen with the iron component and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of information just in here that will be informative for the patient who will be undergoing dialysis, but also for the family who's going to watch this, their loved one do this as well. The coping section down here, a lot of good information for patients and their families to have a discussion, especially this coping effectively. I think that's a great resource for them as well. And then coming down here to the bottom, now I'm a plan B planner kind of person. There's a section here for emergencies. That's great. If your K is high, what to do. You're going to get Keyexalate usually once a year. You go home with it, yada, yada. But down here, right here in the middle, is the palliative and comfort care section. And when I saw that, I stopped. And I'm going to tell you why. Because patients and their providers have this relationship where it's almost like the expectation that you need a treatment to get better. And once you go on dialysis, yes, it's a treatment. But like I said, there's a pre-dialysis lifespan, and then you have a dialysis and on lifespan, and their two are very different from one another. And while the provider's goal is to treat the patient, there isn't always a conversation that has to go with the actual emotional effects of having dialysis, the pain that some people go through having dialysis, and just the toll it takes on your body. And while patients always have the decision to say yes or no to a treatment, for dialysis, it's usually the end of the line. Some people qualify for a kidney transplant, some don't. Some are on waiting lists for a kidney that they never get. And understanding that the patient has that option and has that decision to make for themselves. And if it's not presented to the patient as an option, they may only see dialysis as the end of an end, that they're going to be on dialysis forever. Palliative care, I think, is a conversation that's very hard for some providers. Even in the ICU, I find that some providers don't like having a palliative care, which is not the same as comfort care. They don't really want to have those conversations, mainly because I think providers, they want to fix as much as they can, and they don't want to give up, which is a great character trait for any provider. But for someone who is on the family side of things, understanding that dialysis is the means to the end. And yeah, you can have a longer lifespan with dialysis, but what will that consist of? We know that the kidney filters out medications and things like that and toxins. I watched my dad on dialysis. He had chronic pain. He would have to have repeated dosages of pain medication because the dialysis would remove it, and he'd be in pain all over again. And it was terrible to watch, so I can only imagine what it was for my own dad. And while palliative conversation and a comfort care conversation wasn't something that my particular family was ever given the option to have, I like that it's here for other patients and their families to at least have the option, because this is a one-stop source of information from start to finish, from someone who's maybe might have kidney function to now having full-blown kidney failure and going through dialysis, and dialysis is just not what they expected it to be, and their life isn't what they want it to be. And then going through the thought process of, do I want to continue dialysis? And these are very real conversations, and this here is the beginning for a topic for conversation for their provider and themselves to have. So I find that this website pretty informative, and there's lots of other information in here, but as to the best option is right here for palliative and